Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about framing. And this is on the heels of our technical math on prospect theory, going through that utility function. Now we're going to take a step back and notice how framing of a question or a decision can actually influence our ultimate decision making abilities and our ultimate decisions that we make on this. So, in a previous video, we outlined the fat-free meat based on 80% fat-free when you go and buy it. And then the 20%, they don't say that it's 20% fat. They say it's 80% fat-free. And anybody who likes a good bargain like me likes to buy the less or the fat-free that has less or more fat in it and always pay the price. So I always have to learn, hey, pay a little bit more so you're not dumping out a bucket of grease after you cook your meal. And so framing here, we see positive and negative. That's our first way we frame it. You can also see positive and negative framing in survival rates. So procedure, if it's positioned to you in a way that there's a 97% chance that you'll survive this procedure, you're much more likely to take it than if someone were to say, hey, there's a 3% chance you're going to die from this. And so you can see framing all around you. Even at the health club, I can see framing when I've got on one side, you have CNN, and then you have on the other side, Fox News. And I noticed that when the stock market was down, Fox News would paint in all sorts of red that the stock market was down, and the font on CNN would be smaller. But then as the market shifted and became positive, Fox News dropped their framing on that to go either very small. I think they eliminated it. And then CNN blew up their font to green. And so again, you see this all around you. I'm doing the same thing with my wife. If we're making a bet, I always tell her that if we make a bet and I win, she has to make out with me. So that's her penalty, has to make out with me. But if she wins the bet, she gets the opportunity to make out with me. And so you can see I'm getting what I want anyway, using framing to my advantage. You can get your dates based off of that as well. I have to take you on a date if I lose, and if I win, you get to take me out. You're getting a date anyway. Anyway, there's some other ways that we have framing as well. There's auditory framing, and that's you can say, hey, can you please get the door really nicely? Or you can say, hi, please get the door. Usually yell it. I got the microphone attached to me. And I won't do that to you today, but you can use different auditory framing to say the same thing, but to convey a completely different frame. And that can influence decisions as well. Visual framing. So there's three ways we can do some visual framing. First, we'll call that A here. We've got font framing. And then we also have color framing. So if I've got my markers over here, if I want to do a boy themed party for a boy, that's our stereotypical colors. If I wanted a girl, I could do this. Same thing if I wanted to use font around that. I can even use a neutral font. And usually I try to come up with my best if we're doing a birthday or party for a young boy who's rock and roll. We're going to use like real sharp birthday or it's a boy. And then we're going to put lightning bolts and then guitars. And then with the girls, we want to use fluffy and flowers. And these are stereotypes, I know, but just way that we can frame it and people automatically visualize where the intention is going, essentially. So, and then next we've got Body language. So, body language is another visual where how we stand and approach, and even proximity to cameras when we're online, if we're really on top of somebody, if we're standing up, how we present ourselves can really present a frame, either positive or negative. Around this, you can be intimidating, or if you want to be welcoming, hands out, hands behind your back, relaxed, other tense and hovering, all these things. These are different ways that we would frame. And then we have another one that's called value framing. And this one I feel is overlooked and pretty important here. And we'll see this in marketing quite a bit, where if you are selling something more than $100, we use value framing to the merchant's advantage. And then in marketing, we call this the rule of 100. So we're going to steal this from the discipline of marketing for just a moment. The rule of 100. Anything greater than price is greater than $100. You are going to say X amount dollars off. If it's less than $100, the price is less than, it's going to be percentage off. So that means if we're using framing now, and I've got a price $200. Whoa, that is a no. Let's try blue today. Not much better. $200, we can still see that. And we could say 20, let's use a $50 product down here. And we want to take 20% off. So 20% off here would be $10 off. So you're going to either say $10 off or 20%. 20 is the higher number. That's the eye-catching larger number. So I'm going to put 20% as the bigger number. If I'm going to take 20% off of 200, I have the option of 20% off or $40 off, which is the same thing. But now I'm going to take the higher number and use $40 off. And that's how we can use the higher number, or merchants can, to influence your buying decision. So notice when you get flyers in the mail. So I know that the shoe distribution companies, they know what I like, and they've tapped into that. And so I see coupons that say spend X amount of dollars over 100, get X amount of dollars off. They're not dealing in percentages for the types of shoes that I tend to get lured into. And so we have value framing, but then also we can use value framing in a way to actually help us save more for retirement. And so I actually did a study with one of my thesis students that got published, and we were using value framing to help make better decisions with retirement contributions. So if I say you're making $60,000 a year and we want you to save 10% for retirement, you know that's going to be $6,000 per year, or 10%. From a value standpoint, which one do you think will make people more likely to contribute? And we learned very easily that it's the lower percentage number. Similarly, once they made their election, we said, what if you increased? And we told them that for every percent that you increase your retirement contribution at the age of 23, your future value would increase something like $300,000 for every 1%. So, what we're doing is we're really using framing here to say 1% of sacrifice would bring you future value of $300,000. And then we also said for every additional, and this is for, we did half of the participants with this frame. And then we used the other value. We said, hey, give up another $600 a year, and that'll give you the same benefit. And it did help, but not as much as only the percentage framing would make people give it up. So we can see framing really can work against us in making purchasing decisions, but then it can also help us if it's shown in a lower amount to get us to sacrifice or to save a little bit more. One final point here on framing, you can actually see this in stock pricing. So sometimes you see a company who is doing really well and they've had a really strong rise, and they will do what is called a stock split. And if it goes up to, let's say, NVIDIA in the US is trading at just over $1,000 today. So $1,000. And if they do a stock split, let's go 10 for one. That means they're going to make the stock price $100 per share, and they're just going to increase the number of shares by 10. So the actual price or the value does not change. But sometimes companies will do this because if $1,000 becomes out of reach to some people, that's when the framing will go, oh, $1,000 was too expensive for me. But now at 100, I'm more intrigued. And so they'll make it more attractive to more retail or other investors as well. On the flip side, you're going to see sometimes a really struggling company, they get down to $2 a share and they do what is called a reverse stock split. So if they have a reverse stock split and they'll go 10 to 1 reverse, they basically go the opposite direction and they divide their shares by 10. But then what happens is their share price becomes 20. And what this does from a framing standpoint, at $2, it looks like a penny stock and nobody wants to touch that because it's almost at zero. We don't want to touch that. But at 20, some people perceive this as a more attractive company at $20, even though the fundamentals or the value per share, or the value doesn't actually change. So we've beaten this up pretty good. We've seen it from a number of different angles, but I thought this was really important. And I do want you to think about this in your own world because you're going to start to see framing all around you. So thank you very much. And when we move back into the next video, we're going to talk about mental accounting. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.